I was born in Waterloo, Iowa, which is about 90 miles west of Dubuque and about 90 miles south of the Minnesota border. And in those days, the Second World War was coming on. I went overseas as a combat engineer. I took basic training in the combat engineers in Camp Abbott, Oregon. I got assigned then to, I got yanked out of combat engineers. And my friends, who were not so lucky as I, were sent to the 31st Division, and we got word within a week or so that they had been killed. So I came within a matter of, I don't know how you could say it, days or what, in going into combat. And so then I got sent down to MacArthur's headquarters, and that saved my life. And so I was assigned to G3 drafting and the map section. So I was then with General MacArthur's headquarters from Australia, from Brisbane, all the way up through the end of the war in occupation in Japan. Because of my experiences of being in G3 and meeting so many State Department officials and generals and everything, I had the idea of going to foreign service. And so I didn't at that time ever dream about being a teacher. Well, as I got going in school, I found out, teaching kind of appeared to be a nice occupation. I truly did not want to teach in Iowa. And so that's how I managed to get the job here. I called McElroy, the superintendent. So I called him and he asked me, well, could you come in for an interview? I was, oh my golly, yes, I'll come in. And so I remember the next day I got in the car and I drove pretty much nonstop to Palatine so I could be here for the interview, and I forgot that they were on daylight savings time, and so I lost an hour there, but I just kept coming to Palatine. And I got here and Mac looked at me and he said, I thought you would forget that we were on daylight savings time. So he says, I just knew that you would be a little late. He said, but that's all right. And so I was offered the job right on the spot. And so I went home very elated that I had a job teaching in Palatine, Illinois. And people, where? Palatine? Nobody heard of Palatine. I do remember I got back to Palatine and was ready to start, and there was a train wreck on the on Plum Grove, and that broke the water mains, and they had to close the school for a couple of days. Even at the beginning of my career, I had the habit of walking around. I never sat down. And so I'm walking around, and so I look down at this kid, and he looks up at me, and he said, what was your rank in the war? And at those days, everybody had been in the war, so the kids knew that. I said, well, I was a sergeant. And he looks up at me, and he says, okay, Sarge. And from then on, it caught, and that name then has been with me to today. It didn't go down to Forest View with me, but it was Palatine. That's why I can always tell when I hear the word Sarge, it's a Palatine student. It's not a Forest View student. As time went along, I got involved in activities, and especially student council. I thought we could do things that other schools haven't been able to do, and certainly Palatine had never been able to do. So I got the kids interested in bringing in some of these big jazz stars. Here a high school wants to have Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and the Biggies and everything. And the kids, we all went out and sold these tickets. But the real obstacle was convincing McElroy that we could do it. He didn't say no, but he said, you won't be able to do it. Well, in fact, to this day, he owes me a steak dinner that I proved to him that we were going to make money on it, and we did. As I look back, I'm glad that I got to start teaching in a small school. 250 kids isn't very many. There were only 13 teachers. That's not very many. And to this day, my loyalties are still with Palatine High School. That's why I wouldn't miss a reunion for anything.